It
Yep,
should be.
thank you.
Okay, yeah. Okay, now, yeah,
Much better when you've got it.
Thank you.
okay.
Testing, can you hear me?
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay. Let's start again. Okay. All right, Cheryl. The dog is a nice picture.
I thought he sneezed.
Yeah. Okay, shall we get going here, guys? Let's start with our guest from Alberta, Alistair. And Dave is going to introduce him because he knows him pretty well and a lot better than I do anyway. Go ahead there, Dave.
Well, I've known Alistair for a number of years. He's the, I guess you could say, the informal weatherman for the RASC in Edmonton. He's actually is a professional meteorologist. So he gives us all the up-to-date stuff on what seeing and what those clouds are likely to be. He's also a whiz at, with his friend Luca, taking pictures of sunrises, sunsets, moonrises, moonsets, and other things that happen over the city of Edmonton. And as a sideline, when he's not doing other things, he also helps out with the scope clinic for people who have new or problem telescopes. He helps them learn how to use them, set them up, and do alignments. So he's a very active member in the RAC, and I'm glad to have him here to talk to us tonight about Noctilucent clouds.
Thank you very much, Dave. Yeah, this is the other sideline.
Yeah.
I think most of us in amateur astronomy have about 6 subcategories or 15 subcategories of things we do. So yeah, that Noctilucent clouds are one of the things that I really enjoy doing. So I will
Noctilucent clouds of don't really want.
move to share screen here. There we go. What you're seeing here is actually a fairly average typical Noctilucent cloud for those in the lower latitudes. Essentially it's a patch of cloud still illuminated by the sun in the same way that you can see satellites passing overhead at night. They're still in the sunshine, whereas we're down in the darkness, down low down. These things are 80 kilometers up on the edge of space. And the main thing is they are ice crystals condensed out onto the nuclei of comet dust. And they've become more frequent, and the current workings and theory that seems to best explain why they're more visible now than they were decades or centuries ago, as in they only started being noticed in the 1880s after Krakatoa brought people's attention to the sky. But the working theory is that the methane produced by the whole industrial revolution and increasing urban population, the methane gets dissociated in sunlight, transported up, dissociated, forming water vapor, transported up into the high atmosphere, and then that water vapor is now available to condense out onto the dust nuclei. So typically, like 5 years ago, something like you're seeing on the screen here, might have been about the best you could hope for to see from Victoria, but they've become so extensive in the last little bit. There seems to be a loose correlation with solar activity. If there's a minimum in solar activity, there seems to be a better chance of noctilucence, but it's a loose correlation. Anyways, so this is typically what you would see at lower latitudes, but they've grown to such an extent that this was seen at 34 degrees north. So doing the geometry, this patch of NLC would have been overhead, basically 8 degrees further north in latitude. So, 42 degrees northish, which would put it south of Victoria. So by any and all means, you guys in Victoria should be able to see Noctilucent clouds even going past your zenith if it's a really super duper display. But most of the time it'll be hugging north in the twilight. So there's essentially get out there and look, because you might see something. Generally, the best times I find are when the sun is about 11 or 12 degrees below the horizon. And let's see, does this should be able to do that? Yeah, here we go. So we've had an embarrassment of riches of Noctilucents lately. Here's some of the things from a few days ago. This one would have been on, July the 6th, so that's this morning. I've been up so many nights in a row, all the way to 4 a.m. that I don't know what day is what anymore. But especially you can see with the waves and the ripples that in binoculars, absolutely stunning to watch this kind of thing. So from, again, a couple of days ago, yeah, this is the sort of thing you would tend to see in binoculars, just the rich amount of detail. And this was from this morning at overlooking downtown Edmonton. Looked like I actually missed the peak of the display. I took a nap and woke up a little too late. What I want to show you here, there we go, whoops. Unfortunately, the way this thing seems to best show is on YouTube rather than me running it on my own computer. So I'll let this go. This actually is following the flow. Noctilucent clouds tend to flow from east to west. So if you track them, you can then see the relative motion of the waves going, in this case, through each other. So it's very similar to, say, waves on a gently flowing river, where you can actually have waves going upstream. And you can actually see crests crashing into each other and breaking up. But it's also known that the depth of the NLC layer is about 2 kilometers, so that you can get stuff crisscrossing. And then you can also get aurora. The same time. So here was from a week or so ago. At first we were there for the NLC, and then one of the guys says, that looks a little greenish to me. And then, oh, here it comes. And as usual, the aurora fades and disappears and comes back. And I will finish with probably my, oh, this was in the evening, yesterday evening. We have an air museum in Edmonton, so a nice shot. I couldn't quite isolate the plane away from the building due to where the road is, so that's about the best I could get there. But kind of like that, just the feeling of that one. And then yeah, that was here's from 3 nights ago, a little fainter. It's sometimes they can be extensive like this, where you've got many degrees of sky filled with the stuff, but it can be very faint. And then at other times, you can have something like this, where it's much more restricted, but it's just super bright and detailed. And you really can't tell when you see the thing as it's coming out of the twilight whether this is going to be a great night or not, because the stuff can just evaporate away as the night wears on. And then you go to bed, and then you hear the next day that the person who stayed up got a really great show in the morning. So works a bit like Aurora that way. If you're in bed sleeping, chances are you're missing out. So, that's all I've got to show for the moment. So thank you very much for the invite and the chance to show my stuff.
Wow, that is absolutely spectacular there. Thanks so
Thank
much,
you,
Alistair.
Alistair.
Yes, lovely.
Alistair, why do you say it's comet dust? What's the evidence?
A meteor dust. The size of the particles, mainly. There's essentially, they figure there's, plus there's no other source. It would be interplanetary dust, because there's no way of floating the dust from the surface up. And I guess it's from the way it backscatters the light, they can figure out how what the dimension of the particles are, and I think that's where they sort of come to base. Quick hand waving thing. That's how they come to the conclusion that it's a meteor and comet dust.
So what's the altitude?
Generally 81 kilometers plus or minus. The whole atmosphere does ooze outward and inward along with the solar cycle. So the heights do change a little bit, but it's a fairly narrow band up there.
Alistair, can Noctilucent clouds be confused for cirrus cloud that is illuminated by a full moon?
Oh, absolutely.
Regularly.
Yes. Generally, you have to be a little careful about it. The real telltale is taking pictures, because then the lower light levels, the camera picks up the blue of the Noctilucents much better. And if it's cirrus, chances are it's going to be more yellowy, and especially if you're over a city, more orange, or even more white, depending on whether it's white LEDs or not. But the big giveaway is the motion of the clouds in a matter of a couple of minutes. Normal cirrus moves. Sometimes you'll get jet contrails, and they just slowly track, whereas the Noctilucents are typically, because they're much farther away, they move much more slowly. But yeah, every now and then, just like last night, it's like, oh, we might have them, and we had both regular clouds and cirrus and the full moon, and so it's like, well, let's see, and swung the camera on them, and it's just like pretty sure. And then just as it gets darker, the cirrus clouds generally go darker and darker, whereas the Noctilucents often will get brighter as the sky gets darker. Yeah, that's it can be confusing.
Well, we've got a test for you. We've got a picture that Doug Hardy kindly supplied that will show on our Astro Cafe web portion, and we'll get you to provide judgment to see if it's cirrus cloud or Noctilucent cloud. You're the final authority, Alistair. Well, there you go.
Well, and even then, if it's just a single picture, it's certainly even the experts don't know without seeing the motion. So, but we'll certainly see. Sometimes when you see the ripples and the crisscrossing waves, that's just dead giveaway. You just don't see that kind of detail in cirrus clouds.
Excellent. Well, it was really kind you came over, joined us tonight, because this is the first time we've had an image like this. So, well, that's
Yeah,
excellent.
beautiful. Yeah.
Very, very, very nice images. Lovely.
Yeah.
Alistair, may
Mhm.
may I ask what the relationship is between the Noctilucent clouds and the lack of activity on the sun? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Yeah,
question.
it's a loose correlation. The fact that the observation, I should say, not the fact, the observation that the last 2-3 years has been really major noctilucents compared to a decade ago. Tends to point, you know, people are always looking for correlation and hopefully causation, but they go, aha, what's different these 3 years than before? And it's like a really pronounced solar minimum. So the idea there is that less solar heating of the atmosphere allows it to cool down more. And then it's really a function of how cold the upper atmosphere gets. And I can't really explain it simply that the upper atmosphere is colder in our summer, and it's actually warmer in our winter. It's a 180-degree phase effect there. But the problem is if you, I remember having this discussion of, is it related to solar activity or not? And basically, if you ignore the last 4 or 5 years and you look at the graph, it's just sort of like this, and you sort of go, doesn't look like there's a correlation to me. But it's also only in about the last 10 years that we've had an orbiting satellite dedicated to looking at this. So the usual sort of data analysis and statistics is one cycle. I don't know whether you want to say anything for sure about one cycle of observation. You know, it's like generally it leads you to bad assumptions. So we'll see.
Wait
We'll
another
come back
11
in about
years.
33
coincidence.
years and be able to do it. Yeah.
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 Yeah,
Thank you.
but especially looking at the relationship going back, you know, all the way back to the turn of the previous century. You look at the solar cycle and the activity, and you just go, I don't see a relationship there. But with ground-based stuff, as you know, you've got selective observations. It was cloudy last night. Well, does that mean they weren't there?
Just ask Mike Noble, he'll find them.
Yeah, and the comment that Dave just made there is relating to one of our members, Mike Noble. About 5 years ago, he retired, and he made it his OCD project to actually drive to a clear place to monitor and record noctilucent clouds. And so the previous record for a summer season was somewhere in the, over 30 nights we saw NLCs. And Mike, well, when you start driving 2 hours, and of course on the prairies, it's, you know, nice open roads, so you can get a long distance in 2 to 3 hours of driving. He suddenly, his record is something like 49 in a season, which is almost every single possible night. So when you then start looking at going back a few years in statistics and saying, well, how many nights did they see noctilucents? You start going, well, how do you then start compensating for cloudiness effects? And it starts getting a little hairy. So we'll see.
Oh, it's very cool there. Thanks again, Alistair. Can I ask you a question though, from my own? If you were to try and look for them, how would you go about doing that? Sounds like you need to be there just a certain period after sunset, and mostly looking towards the north, you're saying, or?
Yeah, mostly the north. I actually, if you go to the website nlcplanner.com, that's a website I created. You can click on a button that says timetable, and it'll list the times where the sun is so many degrees above the horizon or below the horizon, and how high in the sky the noctilucents are. But not on that page is the answer to your question. The best time, I can tell you on average, the best time is about when the sun is about -11. But that being said, it has to do there with contrast, because noctilucent clouds can be there during the day. You just don't see them. They're just so thin that the sky brightness is just too much, and it completely overwhelms them. So as the sun gets lower and lower, the sky above gets darker and darker, and then the contrast comes down where, you know, the sky is now dark enough, and now you can see them. So the other effect is, as you get closer and closer to the horizon, the twilight is brighter. And so again, it can be too bright to actually see them. So on average, the best time is about -11, but I've seen noctilucents at -4, and I've seen noctilucents at -14. So, but if you're going to do a, sort of look at your watch, set the alarm type of thing, I'd go for the -11, and that's probably your best bet. And just, well, I was going to say straight north, but again, these things come in patches. So we see stuff easily 40 degrees off of north on either side, and nothing in the north. And because they do come and go, and like cirrus clouds, you could, I've done things where it's just like, well, nothing's there, go to bed, and find out the next day, yeah, 2 hours later, it was fantastic.
Okay.
For us in Victoria, it's slightly below 49 degrees. The window is narrower in terms of days, because the sun doesn't get that far below the horizon, other than a smaller window of days.
Yeah, right. And that timetable on that NLC Planner website will tell you, will give you those times very nicely, and especially now that we've moved off the solstice, we're starting to, the sun's declination is changing more and more rapidly, so those times change pretty rapidly as well as we move away. So it's very easy to get thrown off by, well, a week ago it was this time, and a week later it's suddenly, oh, that's like 20 minutes difference.
Okay, pretty cool. And you get an opportunity when the sun goes down and when it comes back up again. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, and there is a time even for Edmonton on both sides of the solstice where the sun dips too low. For example, the 1st of August is when we return to, the sun is actually hits astronomical twilight and is below -18. For that point, there's a gap where the sun is too low to illuminate the clouds, and so nothing can be seen, and so you can get an evening display, dark, morning display. But right now for Edmonton, and I'm not sure for Victoria, that you could do the whole straight night through.
Well, thank you. Anybody else have any more questions here? It sounds absolutely fascinating, especially since it's hard to see stuff. It's not getting any real dark. Let's stay up way too late. Something else to look for. Lovely photographs.
And especially binoculars. Just make sure you look at them in binoculars.
But you get all the detail of those ripples.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I don't.
Alistair, it's Doug here. can you give me just a rough indication of how you did the videos, like how many frames per second and so on?
Oh, sure. Very quickly, it's I typically take an interval of 5 seconds. 10 seconds, the NLC can move and change enough that 10 seconds is a bit jittery, but 5 seconds is very nice as an interval. And then dump them into the stills images into a movie creator to create the time lapse. And I typically play them back at what would end up being 12 to 16 frames per second. So from frame to frame is 0.08 or 0.0625 are the nice ones. That being said, some of the more recent ones, I've been doing 30 frames per second, so 0.033. And it's one of those things that there's 2 or 3 that I've made recently where you just, once I've got it done, you just sort of stare at the screen and watch it loop and loop, and there's just all of this stuff because you have waves going up, waves coming down, little tiny ripples just fleeting across. And one of the fun things to do actually is grab the play bar and just sort of swish it back and forth fairly quickly. And as long as you've got a decent computer, which you know, it just didn't, you can't really work on Zoom, but if you swish it back and forth, you just sort of see the stuff go really move, and then you see the detail.
Well, I remember mentioning, I don't know if Alistair heard my story, about 50 years ago, I was at Alberta Beach with my cousins and my aunt and uncle, and Lac St. Anne, just west of Edmonton. And I remember seeing this really eerie light in the northwest at 12 midnight. And the sun had set maybe around 10 o'clock or 10:30 or something. It was early July, and I'm sure I saw Noctilucent clouds, and I never will forget that. They were really eerily beautiful.
Yeah, and a lot of people, like one of the sites that the one we're showing across the cityscape, it's a place where lots of people come to take selfies, and it's just like, oh, whatever, clouds.
Yeah.
But just the other night, a youth, sort of 20 years old, plus or minus, came by on his bike. He saw 2 of us taking pictures, and he said, "What's up with the sky? That's really weird."
Oh.
Like,
yeah, that was
10
me.
points.
Yeah, weird sky. It just, oh gosh.
Okay, anybody else? Any questions for Alistair? Okay, thanks again, Alistair. That was absolutely wonderful. It was fantastic photographs there. Yes, applause. Okay, David, are you ready to do your little presentation there?
Yes, I'll just be a sec here. Okay, so I think it was Saturday night. It must have been Saturday night. I went out to Cattle Point to have a quick look at actually at the full moon. I wasn't really expecting anything from the point of view of the eclipse. Being a penumbral, the shadow was very, very subtle, and I didn't really see too much. But I was quite amazed by the another thing. When I was there, actually, I was a little bit distracted by this eagle that was down by the shore. So I kind of missed the actual emergence because I was too busy kind of looking at this guy. But I finally did realize that it was actually coming up over the horizon. So I caught this, and I just, that must be Trial Island, I think. But it was just emerging, and the contrast wasn't great, but I was able to sort of tune the color a little bit. But you can see how distorted the moon is. It's quite squished. I was hoping for something a little bit more dramatic. Sometimes if there's enough atmospheric refraction, the thing actually splits into two. So I've actually keep shooting these, so hoping I'll get that time when it splits into two again. I don't really have a really good shot of one, but I'm always hoping. So I did photograph it a little bit further, and here's the creamsicle moon. When I came back and I looked at it, I thought, that looks like a creamsicle. So that's how I coined it. Of course, it's not as distorted as you move up a little bit. So you can see my rig. I'm using my 300 f4 with a 1.4. So this is about, well, it's not a crop sensor, so this works out to be about 420 millimeters. But I'm also cropping the photo as well. So it's probably closer to about 1,000, I guess, by the time you crop. And this is a composite that I did. This is with a wider shot with like a 70. One thing I should tell you, probably most of you know that have tried this, it's really difficult to get a foreground shot where the moon is actually properly exposed. So in terms of honesty, this is a composite. So the moon is actually a different shot that's kind of merged in with the foreground shot. So that's it. I had fun.
Great pictures there, David.
Thank you.
Really, really nice, David.
Thank you.
The camera to take a picture of your camera as well.
Well, actually, my phone.
How many cameras did you have?
Well, I had my phone with me. So.
Oh, okay. Just a joke. But wasn't that, that was the night too that there was the Americans were supposed to have their fireworks displays.
I guess. I remember that Nathan had a picture of some fireworks, but I didn't stick around for that.
Beautiful photos. Beautiful.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, really great. Reg, did you get down there, take pictures of the fireworks?
Well, I know that the main show at Lopez, which is one of the largest fireworks shows in Washington State, was canceled this year. So I didn't want to advertise it, but looking out at Whidbey Island, all the way along the shore, there were fireworks going on late into the night. But I must say to David, after you took that picture and had such an apt name, I've had a real craving for creamsicles. So I'm thinking I dash down to the corner store and buy a bunch. So a great shot.
Yeah.
David, have you had any or much experience doing high dynamic range composites? I've played around a lot with it. The main reason I'm asking is I've got some success, but I'm just not happy with it yet.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing. I was kind of turned off by it when I first saw the technique because it does look kind of fake. You know, I really try to just stay within the realm of something that looks the same as looks to my eye. Now, yeah, I don't have any compulsion to be totally true in the sense that if the camera is not capable, the technology is not capable, I'm more than happy to adjust something so it looks the same as it looks to my eye. I mean, I still tell people it's a composite, but I mean, I don't feel bad about doing that. But when it gets too far off, I don't really like it very much.
Yeah, yeah.
Personally, I've found also that using HDR software for astronomical use basically doesn't work. More traditional techniques, such as compositing, is pretty well the only way that it'll work for a lot of astronomical work, because, as you know, we're on the far edge of the capabilities of our gear. And the standard algorithms just blood. They just don't work.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there, Joe. I mean, a lot of this stuff requires kind of surgical precision. You can't just do a wide, broad, algorithm.
Yeah, yeah. I've got stuff that's sort of like, oh, it's not bad, but it's not I like this. Yeah.
Now I'll tell you one advantage of shooting when I did. I'm shooting inside of the blue hour, so at that point, the contrast between your landscape and your moon is closer. So that's a bit of a cheat. If you get in there for the first 20 minutes after sunset during the blue hour, you got a better chance.
Yeah, one of the things that Luca Van Zel and I have done a fair bit of is when we call it a dark moonrise, we do some landscape shots just before the moonrise, so you can sort of bring it up without blowing out the moon, and then you composite the moon in later without having moved the camera. So we are doing that, what you said, sort of trying to be truthful to, well, this is how it looks to the eye, and you can get some sort of fairly nice stuff that way.
Yeah, I mean, there's tricks to doing the comp as well, because when you do the landscape, if you're too far off of the 20 minutes after sunset, you're going to get the moon will look blown out. Because it's blown out, it expands in size. So basically, you can either cheat, you can take the moon and make it slightly bigger, expand, and then put it on top, or you can shrink the area. I mean, I've done both.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Do you have a question, Dorothy? Sorry, I think I got you.
Ask is, do you have my audio?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Right over.
Is that because of the problem at that time of day with the human eye, and this dynamic range is just so much better? You've got your bright and your dark and your stuff in between. It's just hard to pump one detail out without the correct software.
You're muted still, Dave.
So, sorry, physiologically, our brain has great wetware. It's I don't know what it's doing. It's probably kind of blending everything. Not only that, each eye is different too. I don't know if you've ever covered up one eye and then looked through the other eye. My colors are different even between my eyes, and my light sensitivity is different between my eyes. Much to my chagrin, I thought I had a perfect body, but I don't. Yeah, so if you just kind of do that, you'll see there's major differences. Thanks to our brain, we have wonderful wetware that kind of merges and manipulates things.
You can fix that by having your cataracts removed, let me tell you.
Yes.
Yeah, one of the neat after effects you get, especially when looking at the full moon, is that, well, you stare at the full moon, of course, and this works in binoculars as well as naked eye, and then you shift your gaze, and the moon is now a dark circle from having blinked out. And so as you sort of shift around, it's very easy to see the moon properly lit, a black circle around it, and then the clouds going out. And it's like, yep, it's not really there, but your eye and brain system put it there.
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you mentioned that, because another thing that I noticed, and I'm a little bit preoccupied when I look at these kind of illusions, having had a background in perceptual psychology. But the funny part about it, when you get that creamsicle moon with that kind of denim blue, you got a weird color thing going on there too. So you have after images working there too. So sometimes I look and I thought, oh, is it really there? Is that something wrong with my sensor? And I thought, oh no, after image. So.
Dorothy, I thought I cut you off on a question there, and you probably know way more about how the human eye works and perception.
Well, I'm not sure. How do I talk?
You're good. We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, of course, I get involved in hearing talk about the eye and the brain, and then start thinking about other things, because that's what I used to do. Not in humans, but So actually, what you were talking about is a combination, all of you, is a combination of what goes on in the eye and in the brain. And the eye, the retina, that is actually part of the brain circuitry. So it's really all in the brain. It's just that the retina is part of the brain that's put out in the periphery, so it's close to the photoreceptors, which of course have to be on the surface. But actually what I was thinking, if that I could just show an image and a brief discussion, minute or two, about our urban sky park, as Miles and I were down at Cattle Point last night. So do I get the screen somehow?
You do share screen.
Share screen, there we go. Okay, now how do I get my screen? No, my screen. How do I get I need my screen.
So if it's open on your computer now.
Oh, share computer, okay.
That's it, thanks, Dorothy.
Do you have it?
Not yet.
In Zoom, did you touch the green button that says share screen?
A green button.
Yeah, at the bottom.
Oh, down at the, okay, I did that once.
Try it again.
Then it offers a selection.
Yeah, and I have a share computer. Oh, that's sound. Optimize. I have a screen.
There's a blue button, Dorothy. Look for the blue button.
Oh, blue. It says.
There you go.
There you go.
Got it. Hold on.
Yeah, the blue button. It says share. Well, I should know that. Now I'm sharing the screen. So what I want is my screen. Okay. Do you see my desktop?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep, we're good.
Okay, so sorry, I'll get this. It's only my second time. It takes me at least 3 times. Okay, so actually start with some eye candy. It's overdue, but it was two weeks ago. So to remind us that we are in the summer. Yeah. This was about 5 hours after solstice, which was 2:43 for us last month. And I just happened to walk into the kitchen, look out the window and see this, and went out in the porch. And actually I hadn't seen this other one starting. But what's interesting for us here, as you can see, so here's the top of the rainbow. So the sun must be right behind me. And this is a distant tree in our, down to the east. There's our, neighbor's rooftop there. So you see, we have only high skies, so we can't see low things rising in the east, northeast. Last night, Miles and I went down to see, and I hope you can see this. I haven't doctored this at all. This is a raw image from last night with the moon, Jupiter, and Saturn. We went down to see it because you can see that we couldn't possibly see it from home. And it was really pretty. I was tempted to doctor this a little bit. And I doubt that you can see any stars here, but maybe you can see a few. Antares is off to the left, but so it was a really nice evening. There was there were other people down there, only one person we could tell was really paying attention to the site, and she was taking some pictures. Turns out she was just learning how to take pictures with a new camera. And so I thought I'd find out what was back there. And this is a plug for our very own urban sky park at Cattle Point. Here was what we were seeing last night. There's the moon, Jupiter, Saturn. Here's the Milky Way. We could see, I missed it in the photograph if I realized I could have caught it, Antares rising. And here we go, Altair is up here. The Delphinus, we could just make out. And of course the summer triangle with Deneb and Vega overhead, and nice view to the north. It would be a great place to look for noctilucent clouds because the north and northeast is the darkest part of the sky. So for old people, old comers, or people who know the park, it's a good place to go, and it's clear now. And if there are new people who haven't been down there, you could really take advantage of the site. There's quite a bit of room. People drive by and stop, but it's not crowded the way it would have been in a normal summer when we would have been up the hill, of course, for store parties. And so it's really nice. And in fact, it's just the last comment is that we saw this woman I spoke to was taking pictures, had just gotten her camera to take pictures of birds, actually, and then was just starting to shoot the sky. And she took pictures of birds in the park, the Uplands Park, which is why we could have the Sky Park there.
I know, that was a mistake.
It's a good place to go, and that's it. Any comments, questions? I'm trying to figure out how to get out of share.
Okay, there should be a red button that says stop
Share
share.
near the top.
Oh, stop share. Okay, there we go.
You're good. Thank you.
Next time, maybe I'll be a little faster.
Every time it's a mystery to me. I spent 30 years in IT.
Thanks for being a guinea pig. Maybe I'll know how to do this one.
You've had the instructions, Reg.
Yeah. Okay, those are pretty cool.
We're just going to show them virtual cafe.
Kurt, I also have pictures from the weekend.
All righty. Why don't you go ahead and do it now?
So on Saturday night, this is with effectively 1,000mm lens. One of the things that I just love is you can also see this superior mirage. The low clouds were repeated upside down. That's what this is across here. And you can see the shadow of the Olympics as the moon was just starting to come up. Then,
not the Olympics.
Come on.
Okay.
That's a bit later.
Here.
Now, I don't think the color that we're seeing is because of the eclipse. I think that's just the light coming into the through the atmosphere. I don't think that it got a shade from the eclipse, but this was eclipsed at the time. Officially. There it is a bit later. So certainly there's lots and lots of refraction going on.
Looks like a rugby ball.
Yeah. So here we have Jupiter coming up. This was Saturday night. And then I lost the focus, I guess, but here's Saturn a bit later. So that was just lovely. That was Saturday night, just near my house on Dallas Road. And then this was last night. So moonrise was at about 9:20 on Saturday night, and it was about 10:15 last night. So some really nice clouds to make it even more fun as it was coming up. But what I was really keen on, oh, there's some more. What I was really keen on was the lovely triangle that Dorothy also shot. So there's Jupiter, Saturn, and the moon. That was the real joy of last night. There you go.
Okay, lovely, lovely pictures there. Thank you, Randy.
If I may suggest, with the mirage stuff, do a time lapse of that. It can be, you can get some really cool effects in time lapse.
My favorite thing is when there's a boat that's upside down, and you can see them changing with time. It's just fantastic. I haven't tried actually doing a time lapse of it, but I've snapped a bunch of pictures. But I should bring a tripod the next time the mirage is at like that.
Oh, I remember seeing the coho
with
on
the
more
boat.
than.
Because you can actually see it. What Diane? Diane?
I remember seeing the coho about, oops. I remember seeing the coho ferry about 10 stories or 15 stories high because it was distorted by the mirage, or it was flat as a pancake. Very strange.
Yeah. So the thing that I like to do is walk down to Clover Point, taking a picture each, 2 meters or so. And so, because what it is there is a layer right about that height where you're going from the cold water, the cold air below to the warm air above. And it's because of that very, very sharp interface that you're getting the refraction. And so you can walk from above it to below it by walking down towards the shore from Dallas.
Amazing.
I got a video of the fireworks through my telescope. I don't really have it to screen share on the computer, but I can just hold the phone up.
Oh boy.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there it is. Uh-huh.
Where were you looking towards?
Port Angeles, yeah.
I've already told him.
I'm wondering if it's
Talk
Port
to Randy about that.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. I brought my scope up to look at that.
Pretty cool. You got a pretty good hand to hold an iPhone up to it. Telescope. Amazing. Thank you. Okay. Reg, you got stuff for us too, don't you?
I'll give it a try.
Once more, breach.
Do I have permission to share the screen?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And what I'll try and do is...
Do what?
Share the screen.
Okay. Can you see anything?
We're good, Reg. Golden
Okay.
webinars.
Well, let's go. Let's go here. This is the Astronomy Cafe. Thanks to the people who sent me some items. I just posted it, and we've seen a lot of shots of the grouping of the Moon, Jupiter, and Saturn. And Doug Hardy got this from downtown Victoria from his observation deck, and you can see that here. Doug, are you able to make any comments on this picture?
It's from a 5th-story deck, and I believe it was at about 1:30 in the morning, and you can see the red light of Trial Island.
Is that Trial there?
I think so. I think so.
You're looking southeast then, I guess, or southeast.
Yeah, yeah, and I think in the daylight I can see the Gonzales Observatory right on there. Yeah, right in there. But it's really not visible here now.
Okay.
And that's about I think about a 10-second exposure at 2.8.
And it was 10 millimeters that you were shooting this at.
Yes. Yeah.
Wide angle lens.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is for Alistair. Alistair, after Doug took this picture, he looked up and he took this picture. And this is at 1:30 in the morning. We're around astronomical twilight time, so the sun is below 18 degrees below the horizon. Keep in mind that we had the moon possibly illuminating a layer. Alistair, what's your professional opinion on this cloud? Is this Noctilucent cloud, or is this Cirrus illuminated by the moon?
I would say it's the latter, based almost entirely on color. The other thing is that Noctilucents typically between the wave crests, do not mush as much as this. But it's really based on color that it's not right.
Okay, so I'm going to have to edit this. Because I said, since the shot was taken so late, it wasn't the sun illuminating it. It must be Noctilucent clouds, which are rather rare visitors to Victoria. So possibly both of those statements are incorrect. So I better go back in there. And I just wanted to make a comment about Dave's Creamsicle moon. I say here, could creamsicles overtake Viva Puffs to be the favorite Astro Cafe summer treat? So keep that in mind. And what else do we have down here? Jim Hesser kindly sent me a notice that tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. there's going to be a Zoom webinar. It's one of the DAO series that I think was instigated by Dennis Crabtree, and it's more or less being hosted by one of the Plaskett people who kindly gave a talk to us, Tyrone Woods, and he gave the last talk before COVID shut down our monthly meetings. At any rate, this is about 150,000 people who are doing citizen science work with the Mars Reconnaissance rover, and the link for this, if you click on that, you can join the talk on Tuesday morning at 11 a.m. So thanks for forwarding that link to us, Jim. Do you have any more comments on that?
No, I thought this might be of interest to a number of people in the Victoria Center. It's the regular seminar series at the observatory, which is organized by the postdoctoral fellows. So it's Dennis Crabtree's Canvas one is on Mondays at 11, but this is the regular DAO seminar series, and I thought this one looked really interesting.
Well, thanks very much for doing that. And Jim also sent out a notice
yes,
about the Golden webinar series. And
let me recheck. Can I get back to you in about 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot. Okay, bye.
So at any rate, there's so many rich offerings out there. It's hard to digest all of this information. But the beauty with the Golden webinars, the Golden Astrophysics webinars, is that they are being put on YouTube, and you can watch them weeks later. And I've been working my way through them, and it's amazing. There's over 2,000 astronomers viewing these things at one time. It's a totally different thing than business as usual. The other thing that is not business as unusual is a poem making it to a science website. Poetry always fills me with terror, but Marjie sent this nice thing. Though my soul may set in darkness, it will rise in perfect light. I have loved the stars too truly to be fearful of the night. And this is taken from a poem called The Old Astronomer. And it was a basis for the title for an Ian Rankin Inspector Rebus novel called Set in Darkness. And you can see the full poem there if you want to check it out. And I think that's all of the offerings I have tonight. Did you want to make any comments, Marjie, on that?
You go down your rabbit holes from time to time, and I had a tiny rabbit hole. The words in those words from the poem were on an astronomy picture of the day, the APOD, last week, and so it said it was from the poem "The Old Astronomer." What captivated me was that the lines have been chosen by a number of professional and amateur astronomers as their epitaphs. So that captivated my interest, and I wanted to know who wrote it. And it was Sarah Williams, a
an English poetess and novelist, and she only lived 31 years. She wrote the poem as part of the poem appeared in a publication called Twilight Hours, which was published in 1868. But I read the entire poem, which is quite long, and I thought it was just quite interesting that astronomers, both professional and amateur, had found those two particular lines and used them as their epitaphs.
That's valuable information. I'm sure everyone is writing that down. Well, thanks for sharing that with us, Margie. Appreciate that. And I'm going to stop my share now. Thanks very much. I just will say, as we go, a reminder to members of council, we have a council meeting on Wednesday, and it's going to be by Zoom, and it's at 7:30 p.m. So see you there.
Okay,
actually, Marjorie, Big High, when they did their cards last year, their astronomy cards, they're raising money, used that poem as well.
Oh, yeah,
wow.
Clayton.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty cool.
It is cool.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Alistair,
Cards
before you go, Alistair, have you had a chance to go and look for Comet Neowise yet?
No, I haven't. The other morning, I didn't even bother because the NLC was so bright. It's just like, well, I'm not even, and the comet is so low. But I might get a chance. There may be a break later overnight for me, but
it's too low for us. It's going to be too low for us. It'll be below the horizon for us.
Yeah. So it's, yeah, I guess we're in that sweet spot. But Larry Wood picked it up from Edmonton in binoculars. So looking forward to getting a peek at it.
Okay. Do you think we'll be able to get to see it more around the 20s?
It's climbing up about 4 or 5 degrees. So
if we got a good horizon, north horizon, we might.
Yeah.
Speaking of being in a sweet spot, Alistair, are you being troubled at all by the Starlink constellation of satellites? Because they're basically doing a U-turn right over the latitude of Edmonton as they go in their orbits.
To be honest, I haven't paid any attention to them except about a month ago when I saw them, but I've kind of been distracted and not checked. But I have seen them, the ones that are well positioned in the sky, where it's just they're separated by about 1 minute. Just like, yeah, there's another one. Yep, there's another one.
I was so disgusted when I heard about that. One greedy guy, and we all have to suffer for one billionaire.
Well, I saw on the website they're taking, well, what sounds like pains to shield them. So he's working with astronomers in that regard. But yeah, it's still lots of stuff up there. About the only exciting thing that might happen is when they burn up, that we might get to see them.
Yeah.
In all my years, I've never seen a satellite burn up. I hear it's pretty spectacular.
Yeah, I hear he's taking a temporary launch hiatus to try and come to grips with some of the brightness problems.
Good. What is the lifespan of each satellite? No.
As long as he can make money off them.
Yeah, that's true.
The first sequence of satellites he sent up there were kind of a test, and he's going to bring them down in about 3 or 4 years, I think.
Okay, so it's a period of years then.
I have to go. I've got another commitment. So thanks. Have a good evening.
Thank you,
Alistair.
Lovely photograph.
Yeah. See you next time.
Hello, everyone.
Later.
Can you hear me?
Okay.
Hello?
Anybody else got anything for us tonight?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah. Oh, Alex?
Yes.
Go ahead, Alex.
I have some pictures.
Okay. go ahead and share them. And
Yeah, I'm sharing the screen. I hope it works.
okay.
That. Where's my screen? I want my desktop.
First, you have to push the green share screen button.
Yeah. There we go. Start screen sharing. That's looking good.
There.
Okay, and where's the rest of my screen?
Okay, I think we're in business here. We can see your browser.
Okay, you see my screen?
Yep. We can.
Okay. Come on. Okay, this is the picture of the full moon, May the 7th. That's zoomed in.
Easy detail.
And the last one I think is the best one. That was taken with a point and shoot camera through my 8-inch telescope.
Wow.
11 o'clock at night, Thursday. The moon was
So
very
is that limb darkening on the lower right-hand side?
Penumbral.
Is that the partial eclipse?
No, this is full moon.
Oh, just the full moon. Okay.
May the 7th on Thursday. And it was low in the east. And I used my 8-inch telescope. And I shot it through, I held the camera through the lens of a 35mm 2-inch diameter eyepiece.
Wow. Handheld.
Yes, handheld.
Oh my God.
And the telescope is not guided either.
Impressive. Oh, amazing. You can see some details of the craters on the left-hand side there too, can't you?
Right, this one.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It's lovely. And you can see Tycho there.
This is Tycho? This big one?
Yep. So it's going to be inverted from what you see in binoculars, right? Yep. Okay, that's lovely. How do you get the settings on the exposure right when you're pointing it at a...
I just point and shoot. It was 1/50th of a second.
Okay.
125.
Okay, it made its own decisions. Excellent.
And I had to set it up in front of my house, the telescope, to see this.
Excellent.
Okay, then I can say stop.
Yes, well done. Thank you, Alex. That's great.
Here it's John McDonald here. I've got something I want to show too.
Oh, lovely.
Just very quickly. So I'll just share the screen if that's okay.
Yep. Absolutely.
And okay, can you see that?
Yes, we can.
You can see you should be able to see the moon with Jupiter and Saturn above it.
Yes, yeah, we can. We can see your entire screen.
Yeah, that's from last night.
Wow.
Oh, wow. It's not a super great picture because it like Alex, it's handheld.
Very pretty, very nice.
I woke up in the night and saw that and just had to go out and take a quick shot.
Got a little moonbow going on there.
Yeah.
Is your plexiglass back in place there, John?
Yes, it is.
And it never left, did it?
I did put it back. Okay, so so I'm done with that. So I'll stop the share.
So there's just one exposure, right, John?
That was a single exposure.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So everything was that bright. Excellent. Excellent.
Just a quick one.
Okay. Thanks, John.
Okay.
Anybody got anything else for us tonight?
I'd just like to thank the host for setting this thing up and coordinating everything. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Reg. I think you managed to get some extra visitors with cool Noctilucent clouds and so on. Okay, everybody.
I'm pleased we're able to make that link to Edmonton. It would be nice if we could try and reciprocate or perhaps do something similar again.
Yeah, no, it's always nice to have those Edmonton guys there. Lovely, lovely photographs.
Yeah, it's my hometown. My roots are from Edmonton, so, and having spent a few years in Alberta, and it's just there's been a lot of stargazing. That's where I cut my teeth in astronomy, was Alberta, those dark skies. So I really appreciate that. Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, these things can kind of motivate us to get out there and do some observing.
They do,
Absolutely. Oh, we get in the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Thank you. I'll see some of you Wednesday. See you Wednesday.
Wednesday, right.
Yeah, for the council.